before I start and share a little bit of the background, many of you are parents in this room. And I will tell you that today is a singular pleasure, honor, excitement for me. How many times in your parenting life do you get to be on a program that your youngest son has been a primary organizer on, Jacob and his work, and then get to share the podium with your other two sons? That's a real pleasure, and it's a real honor. So I want to talk a little bit about trees.
Got to advance the slide to talk about trees.
I don't have it on a slide. I'll click when I want to. I'll click now. The word history there is a word about trees. And trees have roots, and trees have branches. And they all have to start from that small beginning that doesn't look like much. It's pretty unpretentious. And as a matter of fact, it was unpretentious when my dad and mom came down to the Ozarks from that city of the Chicago Cubs, that one, in the late 1940s. They came down. Chris mentioned it, and he's right. They came down on vacation. I really think, though they never admitted it, I really think what they wanted to do was get away from their two sons, Jack, my brother, and myself, because we were teenagers, and that's reason enough for a parent to take a vacation. When they were gone one time, by the way, we did paint the house. We didn't tell them we were going to do that, and they came back to a house that was not quite the same color, but it was very nice. We thought it was very, very nice. That was in the late 40s, and in fact, to compress a story way down, Mom and Dad did fall in love with the Ozarks. They really found that it was a beautiful place to live. Dad, who was with the Electrolux Corporation, set his sights on retirement to the Ozarks. And Chris mentioned, very simply, leased a cave. Everybody does that, I understand. It's not hard. You just go out and get a hole in the ground and lease it. Marvel Cave had been in operation since 1894. It had a long, long operating history. It was run by two of the sweetest little old, and I'm going to use the term old maids because that's what they were. Miriam and Genevieve Lynch, age 73 and 75, ran this cave. And Marvel Cave, for any of you who haven't been there, is a big cave. And Miss Genevieve would take tours through the cave 2 and 3 times a day. That was what they did. Well, it was time for them to retire. Dad wanted to have a business to retire to, and thus we acquired Marvel Cave. And we commuted at that point. We lived in Illinois, in Wilmette, Illinois, New Trier High School for any of you who are from that end of the world. And each summer, Mom would come down to the Ozarks, and she would run Marvel Cave. It was imperative that Dad stay in Wilmette and Evanston, working with the Electrolux Corporation, because the cave was not exactly cash flowing. I will give you the numbers from the first year. The first year we set record attendance, 1950. We set record attendance of 5,000 guests going through Marvel Cave. They'd never done anything like that. We charged $1.25. you can get the gross revenue very quickly in your head with numbers like that. Well, that's not sufficient to pay for a staff of, it only took 3 people, but we were there, we had to eat, and so my brother and I, Jack and I, would come down, and we would work, and we'd work all season long until we had to go back up to school. Mom would stay behind. It was not an easy time. That was not an easy time. One of the most wonderful things that happened, and I believe with all my heart that it shaped who we are today. You see on the screen, you see the name of Bert and Lester and Rex. Bert, Lester, and Andy, I'm sorry. We acquired Bert and Lester. They were there. They were working for the cave and for the Lynches, and they just stayed over and worked for us. In terms of people whose integrity meant everything, whose word was their absolute bond, who deeply cared about taking care, and Bert and Lester, between them, had a 3rd grade education. They made no bones about it. That's just where they were. But what we learned from watching them, how they treated each other, how they treated us, how they treated the guests who came, was in fact foundational to how the family developed and grew from there. It was remarkable. Well, what changed? Kind of a calendar. In 1955, Dad died. He was not able to live out the dream that he had for Marvel Cave. He had the first inkling of a dream of what Silver Dollar City could be, but not Silver Dollar City. He was just thinking of something else for visitors to do. And then again, moving the story forward rapidly, in 1959, we started the construction of Silver Dollar City. Silver Dollar City was not intended to be what it has become. It was initially built, very, very simply, as something else for visitors to Marvel Cave to do before they went in the cave or after they came out. Very quickly, we learned that the tail was wagging the dog. Attendance in 1959 through Marvel Cave was about 80,000. The next year, in 1960, when we had opened Silver Dollar City, it was 120,000. The cave didn't change. It was what people were finding up on top. And so Silver Dollar City was born. And it was not long before my brother Jack, and I need to say this. Jack is my brother. He is my partner. And he is absolutely my best friend. Then and today, we remain very, very close. I trust him absolutely, and he trusts me in the same way. So we were then in the process of trying to build. We had this business, and we didn't even know we were in the theme park business. We didn't. We thought we were in the cave tour entertainment business for about a year. And then Jack and I sat down, and we laugh a little bit about it, but we had our first board meeting. We literally, this is a true story. We sat on a board out behind the well. I'm assuming that some of you have been to. How many of you have been to Silver Dollar City? Oh, don't you love that, guys? Rest of you get down there. You need to.
That's what I saw. I saw a bunch of hands that weren't raised. Opportunity.
Jack and I sat on a board behind the Wilderness Church at Silver Dollar City, and we made a decision. And this is fundamental to the roots of the tree, the stuff that started it. We made a decision that this business that we were starting to run, this business called Silver Dollar City, this business called themed entertainment, we wanted to run it as much like a professionally managed corporation as we could. We wanted a board of directors. We wanted them, the board, to have authority over the practices and policies and development strategies of what we were doing. And we made one other decision in that time frame, and it is also fundamental to who we are. We said we wanted to run a business as a Christian operation. Our families are all Christians. We're not in the business of church. We're just in the business of serving Him. And that has helped shape our culture too. In the way we do business, the mistakes that we made and will continue to make, all of those things are covered by who we are in terms of who we are really, really responsible to. So the people ask us, what's the biggest decision you ever made? And I think what they're probably thinking about is things like, you wanted to expand into Tennessee, Dollywood, or in more modern terms, more contemporary terms, the Harlem Globetrotters. And the answer is, of course those are big and important decisions. The best and most important decision we made, and we were coming from that board meeting that Jack and I had back in the very early 60s, the best and most important decision we made then and now was that we were going to bring in a group of men and women as an independent board. Remember our premise, to operate as closely as we could to a publicly held corporation. But that board, then and today, has absolute power. It's a one-man, one-vote board. There's no stock ownership. We initially signed a contract with them. We don't do that anymore. But it is very, very clear. The board is made up of professionals from outside. There is just one person on our board who has any experience in themed entertainment businesses. We have 2 investment bankers, 1 ag chemical manufacturing company president, 1 man who is in communication, 1 man who is president of Honey Baked Ham. But they are absolute professionals in their own right. And they are absolutely right. They have stopped us. When it was just Jack and myself as the operating people in the company, we would come in with some ideas. We just thought they were classically good. And they would say no. They'd say, no, you're not going to do that. And every time, they were right. One personal story, then I think my time is, I got to be wrapping up, right?
You have 6 minutes, but I'm not paying attention.
It is difficult in a family business to have family members disagreeing. What do you do? How do you resolve that? I can just picture that every person in this audience who is in a family business has to work with mom or dad or brothers or sisters has that problem. Jack and I did. Even though we are quite different in what we do, he is an exceptionally good operating manager, just as good as they get. And he's very, very good. Detail bores into the financial statements deep and effectively. I happen to be, my strength is in the marketing field. So we are a contrast in that. But we had an agreement. We didn't disagree very often, but we set up a system that when it came to a disagreement, and we really disagreed. This is not arguing. This is always on policy. When we really disagreed, we would take that disagreement to our board. The difference was that I had to represent Jack's position to the board, and he had to represent my position to the board. And we never told the board that. We never told them. This only happened about 4 or 5 times over a span of probably 15 years. But we never told them. And we said, we have a disagreement. And the board would consider what we said. And 5 times, I think I won twice, and he cheated and won 3. I think he got to them. We also made a decision, Jack and I, that it was not going to work, that our company would stay family held forever if we owned and controlled all the stock. And so 15, perhaps 18 years ago, we started a process of moving the ownership of the company to the next generation. You heard me referred to as G2, Generation 2. G3, part of them are sitting right here in the room. The stock has been moved to the point that I think I own 300 shares, and Jack and I was about the same number. We moved it out in a way that the stock can continue to be moved on downstream. That's very, very important when you distinguish the difference between owning a company, our families, G3, G4, and there's a G5 out there. When you distinguish between the business of owning your company, G3, 4, 5, own the company. They clearly understand that they do not run the company. The immense difference between properly owning a company and then seeing to it that it is well run. We come back to our board for that. Stockholders know that. We just this month changed CEOs. The stockholders had no voice in that transition, none. The board of directors did exactly what it was paid to do, and the transition was made inside of 2 days. It worked, and it worked well. So we want to stay family held forever. And everything that we have done to this point to build those roots strong in the ground, to allow the branching to happen, is in place. and it's working. Does everything work well? Absolutely not. Do we make mistakes? Absolutely. Do we have a vision for where we want to be? The answer to that is absolutely. One of the things that we all have learned, and learned well, I think, is that as we move down this road that we call our family business, and we move on down that road to the future, we are on a road that is under construction. It's not done yet. Won't be done in my lifetime or their lifetime. The road to our future is always under construction. It's just nice to know that where that road is leading.